What's up? Welcome down to the vault. Glad you guys can make it down. As usual, I am accompanied by my partner here, Mr. Walter Morgan. What's up, Walt? How's it going?
I'm doing good, thank you.
Right on, man. So, hey, this episode of the vault, we're going to talk about one of our heroes. Like I've done in the past, and I've said before, we're going to go to a lot of our heroes. We're going to go talk about them and then go back to them. But today we're going to talk about a man who's very dear to us. His band was. We're going to talk about Lemmy Kilmister and Motorhead. And I remember the first time that I saw Motorhead was 1980 or 81. Ozzy was on tour for Blizzard of Oz. And in the Bay Area, they played these big concerts. Bill Graham, they were called Day on the Greens. I've discussed them before.
God, you're old.
Thanks. Yeah, you too. And what he would do is even bands that were not touring together, like festivals, this was before festivals, he would put them together on one bill, and usually at the Oakland Stadium they would play.
What was it, like 60,000? Because they had the floor and all the seats. They were like so many of them that we went to.
So this was on a Saturday. Ozzy played Day on the Green. But on the next day, Sunday, he played in Santa Cruz, California, which is about probably 40, 50 minutes from Oakland. Me and a bunch of our friends took a ride to go see Ozzy, and the opening band was Motorhead.
Hey, Zetro, can you tell my boss to fuck off and then I want to quit?
Yeah, I can leave a message just like that. Go to cameo.com, download the app, request me, and Walt, I can tell your boss to go fuck himself. Me and a bunch of our friends took a ride to go see Ozzy, and the opening band was Motorhead. And man, when they kicked in, it was a loudness and heaviness like I had never heard before in my life.
And pretty raw for the time,
I mean,
right?
way raw. I mean, I was listening to punk rock at that time, and this was, it seemed like something to another level of rawness. And that was my first episode that I got to see Motorhead. And when I saw that, I think after that I was kind of a locked fan because I really liked, it was the first time I had heard somebody with vocals, with not just with a really pretty singing voice. Even hard rock and metal up to that point still had good singers or unique sounding voices, which I believe Lemmy's voice is very unique.
He was ahead of his time, for
way
sure.
ahead of his time. But
vocals.
you didn't get somebody with that real deep draw until him. Now there's every band, everything in the world. And now it's cool, but there wasn't before Lemmy. And I remember hearing that on what Ace of Spades was the first record that they came out with, and I was. After that, I was hooked,
Yeah, for me, I found out about him because we have an iconic record store, the Record Vault on Polk Street in San Francisco. A lot of you guys might have heard of that place. But we used to go there and actually have a signed album by him and the band. And that's how I found out about them. And actually, I remember seeing him, I think, Zetro played with Exodus, and they supported him at the San Francisco Civic Auditorium, is that it?
I think it was Oakland Auditorium.
Or Oakland's.
Wasn't Wendy O was on that, right? It was on my first
so
gigs back.
it was
in
an
the
auditorium, and that was a huge show for you back then.
Plasmatics. Yeah, well, for me, because I was a huge Plasmatics fan, but let alone to be sandwiched in between Motorhead, it was just so kind of.
Well, at that
I
time,
felt in awe, especially
at that time. I think that was a pretty big place for Exodus to play in that time period.
I think around 8,000. I'd seen Pat Travers there. I'd seen Def Leppard when they first came out.
On Through the Night there.
That's right. I'd seen AC/DC
Black
there.
is
Yeah.
Back. Remember that from there? A lot of iconic shows and awesome shows back then, huh? But yeah, Lemmy was one of a kind. I have a funny story about him. When we were on tour in London, that's where he lived. And we had an after party, and we went to this bar, and all the guys in Exodus went, and it was some dingy, dark club. And
it was called the St. Moritz. Remember they called it the St. Moritz?
He's got a memory like you wouldn't believe. Yeah.
It was in Soho part of London, in the seedy part, where it was kind of like an after-hours club. Pubs closed at 11, and they still do in London. But at that time, you could pay, what was it, £6? Or no, it was 15 quid to get in. But then you could drink, and it was open until 3 a.m. And we were there drinking.
He showed up, and I'll never forget because, there's Lemmy, He's, even back then, I was like, wow, that's,
always
he had
in
a
awe
presence.
of the man. Always in awe.
But he's a character, too. And he was in that club, and I saw him, and I couldn't believe it. There's a big rock star, and he had this denim vest on, and he opens it up, and out of the pocket and the inside, he has a flask of whiskey that he's buying a Coke and putting the whiskey, just like everybody else when we were kids, right? You don't want to pay the big dollar for drinks. But I thought that was
because they didn't
funny.
serve alcohol at those places. Well, remember, it was beer and snake bites at the San Moritz. That's all you could get. Booze, alcohol, but that's all you could get. Well, remember, the snake bite was like beer and grenadine, and then they had beer, but that was all there was.
Well, Lemmy was a Jack and Coke man, right?
But that's why Lemmy brought his own stuff with him, and then
smoking his cigarettes.
And then we were another experience I had with him was right in '93, about when one of Exodus's final shows and tours. We went to Argentina with Motorhead and played 2 nights in Argentina, and Rick Hunold and I, we went backstage, and we just kind of did some speed with Lemmy for about 6 hours and drank Jack and talked about rock and roll and talked about all kinds of things, talked about World War. He's an expert on World War II, and he loved things like that. He
loved the pins and stuff,
he
right?
collected everything, and not just pins.
That
That's what he put on his vest, but his house and everything was all collected. He was very knowledgeable in all of the aspects of German and English warfare, in general. And so to listen to him, kind of talk and tell him was really, really cool. We kind of got to.
Well, he was older than you guys too, so it really made an impact on you. Because he's like, what, 10, 15?
15 years or more older than me. I think like 7. No, Lemmy's probably about. Lemmy died in 2015. He was 70. He would be.
Whoa. Where can I get one of those cool t-shirts, Zach?
GreyhavenMedia.net. Get yours today. No, Lemmy's probably about. Lemmy died in 2015. He was 70. He would be 74. He was 73 now. So he was 18 years older than.
Isn't that about average age for a rock star nowadays?
I don't know. 70? Not this rock star. I'm sorry. I'm going to be hanging. I'm going to be hanging for quite some time. You guys aren't losing me. So, and we were all actually. We were fortunate enough to get to play the final motorboat that they did in September, October of 2015, and it was Motorhead and Slayer, Exodus, Suicidal Tendencies. Anthrax, Hatebreed, Corrosion of Conformity, and that whole ton of slew of other cool bands. And unfortunately, 3 months later, he passed. Less than 3 months later, he passed away. But as far as like someone who deserved to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, like I've talked about and before, he was a complete hero icon. On the back of my trading card, remember those trading cards that we have, Walt?
Sure.
He's one of my influences on there. I got to know him well enough that he knew who I was and he knew who Exodus was, and many times we would be at the same festival that he would be at, and one of his managers or people would come knock on our door and say, "Hey, Lemmy wants to come say hi to you guys," and all of a sudden he'd come up and he's like, "Hey chaps, how you doing? I see you." And he'd hang out for a couple of minutes and shoot the shit, and then he'd go off onto his dressing room. He was just a very memorable individual. I'll never forget him. He's one of the biggest influences in heavy metal, if not the biggest influence on heavy metal. Rest in peace, Lemmy.
That's true. And I'd like to add something after he passed. Our friend, a good friend, Caton from Hyrax, another band that.
Oh yeah, Caton.
That he's the lead singer for Hyrax, another one of
the
these
first
old
metal
bands
to do.
Anyway, he had a lot to do with getting a statue together of Lemmy, and it's
outside the
in
Rainbow,
Hollywood.
right?
It's in the Rainbow, I think, or outside of it.
Outside the Rainbow.
Yeah,
So
and
if you go to
everybody
Hollywood-
pays homage to him and goes to it. So if you're in LA, go to the Rainbow and get your picture next to that.
Yeah, leave me some comments. Let me know tell me some of your experiences with Lemmy, because this isn't like the first time we'll go down this. I did one. I've talked about Ronnie James Dio, who was another hero. We'll talk about more of our heroes. Remember, leave us comments and subscribe to my channel, and we'll see you next time in Zetro's Toxic Vault.